This episode of Now This Is Lit is brought to you by Audible. Check the link in the description to get your first Star Wars audiobook free. Everyone loves free things. Click that link. Do it. This show is also brought to you by our patrons. If you want to support the show in a different way, with just $1 a month, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/StarWarsLitPod. You can get a sticker. You can get access to an exclusive show that we do every month that's wild and chaotic and fun and something you can only get by becoming a member of the Patreon. There'll be so many more perks very, very soon. But for now, do you want a sticker? Do you want a sticker that has a Now This Is Lit logo? Because it's fantastic and I love them. But I also want to give them away because there's just a stack of stickers on my desk. So if you want one, $1 a month. Patreon.com/StarWarsLitPod. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. You're listening to Now This Is Lit, a podcast about Star Wars books, the people who make them, and the readers who just can't get enough of them. I'm your host, Meg Dowell. I use she, her pronouns. And Temptation of the Force by Tessa Gratton came out a little over a month ago, which means it's time to discuss the book with full spoilers. And with me on this episode to do that is Laura from Force Toast. She's back. Couldn't have picked a better guest to talk about this amazing book with. That's all I'm gonna say. It's a great conversation, at least I think so. I hope you enjoy listening to it. It's been a year since you've been here, actually.
Really? That's fun. How perfect is that then?
It is perfect. I only remember that because the last time we talked was a week before my wedding. And so we were talking about Cataclysm, I think, right?
That sounds like something we would talk about. Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to focus on this recording and not worry about all the other 20,000 things I'm worried about. But here we are.
Well, happy to pull you away from wedding planning stresses and in this case today, whatever else is stressing you out.
Nothing, absolutely nothing. That's absolutely not the case. Like earlier today, I deleted my entire the homepage I'd built for my website. I don't know how it happened. It just disappeared. And I was like, that feels like a very 2024 event. I fixed it. I found it. It was fine. But
I was going to say, I'm like, that feels like a thing that should be backed up somewhere. Like,
what
the hell, internet?
It was. What I couldn't figure out though is how I actually deleted it. I was like, that is pretty impressive. That with one click, it just all went away.
Yeah, that's all it takes sometimes. Just one click really. To completely screw everything up.
Really.
Remind me. Wait a minute. My wrong microphone is selected here. Let's fix that so I don't sound like shit. Which brings me to my question. Am I allowed to swear or nah?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. I certainly don't have to. I'm able to keep my shit together most of the time when people ask me not to. So
no, you're good. No, I used to care more about it and I don't anymore.
Lovely.
I don't anymore. Just because like it's basically it's I can do whatever I want and it doesn't matter.
Awesome. I love that attitude. That is how I approach that too.
Yeah. And plus, like, I think I'm very into like the most authentic podcasting experience possible. So like the more you have to censor yourself, the less fun it is.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, that's a good point.
So here we are. So yeah, say whatever.
Awesome. Does my sound come through okay? Does it hopefully sound better than it did when I first got on here?
It does actually sound great. It sounded, for the record, it sounded fine before, but now it sounds like extra fine.
Perfect. Okay, that's great. I'm happy to hear that.
I hate how it does that when your default is not what you want it to be.
Well, and it's annoying because I went to like the settings and I set it before I started here and it switched back. So fucking thing. Anyway,
man.
It's fine. It should be set now.
It sounds great.
Good.
Sounds wonderful. Books, Star Wars books. I think here's what I think. I think the High Republic gets better and better the farther into it we get.
Absolutely.
I don't know how that's possible because like I thought people have different opinions on this, but I thought Light of the Jedi just came in strong
Mm-hmm.
when we first started. And ever since then, like it's just been like every piece that we got, and this is all obviously by design. They knew what they were doing, but every
Right.
piece that we get, just like in true Star Wars fashion, makes it feel bigger, more intense, fuller, and the more pieces they add to it, it's like, oh, like that, I understand now. I don't know where they're going with it. I don't know where it's going to end. I feel like the closer we get to the end, the less I know what the end is going to be like, which I think is how it should be.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. I think they're doing a really good job at keeping us guessing. And
Yeah.
that's all I want. Like, who wants a predictable ending? I mean, it would be
Right.
great if I could predict maybe some things. And by some things, I mean like a happy ending for some of the people that I
Yes.
care about, some of the characters. But if I am not naive enough to think that everybody will have a happy ending,
Mhm.
so I just am hoping for the best. But I know that it'll blow me away no matter what. Because
Mm.
you're right. I mean, Light of the Jedi, right out of the gate
Yeah.
started so strong and just sucked people in, and now it refuses to let go, which is perfect.
Yeah. And I think they do such a good job. Like I I wasn't sure because they used to release they changed the release schedule. Like they used to do like was it now I can't even remember what it was like before. It was like three books at once or like one right after the other. And then in phase three, they were like, we're not gonna do that. And now they spread things out. So like we get like one book and then like a couple months later, another one, a couple months later, another one after that. And like I feel like I wasn't sure how that was going to work, but I actually like it a lot better because well, for one, on the reviewer side, like it gets to be a lot in a good way, but still like one after the
Yeah.
other, you kind of get a little overwhelmed. I'm like, oh, a book just came out last month and now we have more High Republic, but now it's a little bit more spread out and that's nice. But also as a reader, kind of wondering like, oh, like can they keep up that momentum? Things being like it's still not ending for another year, so we still have everything spread out from now until then. Can they keep up that momentum? Of course they can. Of course they
Yeah.
can.
Yeah, I think they can. There's no reason to doubt them at this point. I mean, we're
Yeah.
at like what, 3 years into all of this? It was like
Mm,
2021 it all started.
yeah,
That seems like a very long time ago.
it does. I can't believe it's been that long. Um,
Yeah.
and we've gotten so much and like it's become such a bigger thing than I ever thought it would be. Like we thought, oh, we're just gonna get books and comics and that'll be fine. But now you have people like cosplay is a huge thing, or people making their own High Republic lightsabers because we don't get those otherwise.
Right.
Um, or like when you go to Celebration, you go to the High Republic panel and it's full,
Yeah.
which is but I went to the one. Which one was that? 22. And I was like, I can't believe all of these people are here for a book series.
Right? It's like so heartwarming.
Yeah.
That wasn't the one that had the fire alarm pulled, was it? That was this wasn't that there's just I think that
Mm,
was the regular publishing panel.
yeah, I don't remember that happening at
Yeah.
the mm,
Because I feel like if that had happened, if the fire alarm had gone off when we were excuse me, in that panel, I think I would have been like, I will go down with this ship. Keep going. I'm happy to burn with this building as long as I get to hear what all of you have to say. It's
yeah.
fine.
Yeah. It is, I think, one of my favorite things, aside from the books themselves, is hearing all the authors talk about the work that they're
Yeah.
doing, talk about their stories, talk about working together, talk about like, there's only so much they can say. What are you telling me? No, my connection is totally stable. I don't know what you mean.
You're coming
Um,
through stable enough on my
yeah,
end, so
yeah. I'll just ignore that. It's fine. To hear them like talk about that they always have things that they know that they can't say, which is also very fun to watch because they're like, I can't elaborate. Or they're looking over to Michael and they're like, can I say that? Can I
yeah.
answer this question? But it's so fun to see them all working together and being like, oh, this thing that we're building is not just fun for you, but you can also tell it's fun for them. And like to see that genuine passion and excitement from them, that's one of the things that makes it so special.
Right. I think it really comes through.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting how they've been able to bring in, because I remember being apprehensive when they were like, we're going to bring in other authors
Mhm.
besides like the five original, I think it was five like story architects for phase
Mhm.
one. I remember being like, oh, I don't like, is that a good idea?
Yeah.
Like phase one was so good. I mean,
Yeah.
why rock the boat? And then I mean, we got like Cataclysm by Lydia King. It was like one of the best things ever. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm fully on board. As always, am proven wrong when I have hesitations like that. But yeah, the collaborative nature of it, you can tell that they get a lot of joy out of it. And
Yeah.
I think that comes through in the books.
Yeah. I the more authors that they've added, I think like the more it's just fun everything has gotten. Not that it wasn't before, but it's like you add those new voices in like a little by little, and it just becomes like this even bigger, honestly more chaotic thing, but I say that lovingly.
Oh yeah, for sure. And like everybody gets to kind of put like a little bit of themselves in it. It
Yeah.
like comes through and adds like a little something different, and then it builds on that and it just works. It just
Yeah.
works. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how to explain it, but I'm glad that it works.
Someday I want like something, whether it be like a book or I don't know, a video, a documentary, something where they all can finally like come together and be like, this is how everything happened. Because we know
Hmm.
a lot of that, but there's still like so much we don't know. And like they can't reveal all of it while it's still going on. And I don't like to think about it ending, at least as far the High Republic as we know it ending. I don't like to think about that, but also like I think there's something to be said, especially in Star Wars storytelling. Again, I say this lovingly, for a story that has a beginning, middle, and end, and you have that finite ending, and you can see so clearly like all the points that led to that ending, and like no matter how it ends, I think it will be as satisfying as something as big as this can. I'm looking forward to it, but also not because I think I actually will cry when it's over.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I'm like, I don't want to think about the end times. I'm just gonna block that out and bury my head in the sand
Mm.
until I absolutely have to. But I mean, I think about things like the sequel trilogy and the original trilogy and how those things were pretty finite endings at
Mhm.
some point in time. And look at what has come out of it since then.
Yeah,
And so, like, why couldn't they do that with the High Republic, where we
right.
continue on and get some of those like in between story
Mhm.
bits? Like, I can totally see that
Mhm.
happening. And I sincerely hope it does, because I swear, like, these books are my absolute favorite, to the point where when it's not a High Republic book that I'm reading, I'm like, I just want this to be High Republic. Like I know like we get a little something else every now and then in terms of
Yeah.
novels, and I want it to be High Republic. Like please just go back. Stop this
Mm.
and let's go back to High Republic so I can enjoy this a little bit more. But
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just me.
I do think that in some way they're going to continue these stories. And I think like because a lot of people whenever I'm like, what do you think's going to happen? A lot of people are like, well, maybe they'll do a phase four. And I don't think they're going to do that. I think like in terms of like phases that we're getting, I think that will stop. But I could not see them like not in a good way riding off of the massive success that this is and being
Yeah.
like, okay, we can do another short story collection where you get stories from all different eras and all different authors to contribute. Or we get just like the High Republic becomes another publishing era in Star Wars that we get a book from every once in a while. So like you get your prequel trilogy era stuff, and then every once in a while, oh, we're going back to the High Republic. Like that could work super well, I think. Um, I think it would be interesting, though probably not as likely to do that with new authors, where like if you're doing short stories, you can be like, hey, random Star Wars author, do you want to try writing in the High Republic? I think that could become something, maybe. Because we've seen what happens when they add more people. You kind of just take they're so good at sharing characters that like it never really feels out of place and or it hasn't yet. And um that's just so powerful. So I think there's definitely going to be more. Um, there's no way that they would do all of this and then be like, no, we're never going back. That would be so disappointing.
I know that would be really sad. And I mean, part of me also understands like maybe some of these authors wanting to like take a break and step
Yeah.
away from it and work on
Yeah.
some of their own stuff instead of working on an IP like this. And
Yeah.
I 100% get that. Yeah, the idea of it not stopping completely cold is unfathomable to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
Number one. And number two, I feel like I've seen, I don't know, like Michael Siglain every once in a while, like respond to somebody on Twitter when they're like, but these phase two characters, like, is that it? And it's like, I feel like he sort of hinted at like, it's not necessarily it. Like, we might, I'm
Yeah.
like, are you seriously telling me you're ending the story of like Ziri and Fontu there? And then you go jump forward in time and there's still all of this tension between Iram and Aaron. Like, there's so much more story potential to get into there. I'm like, how did it not ever get better? Like,
Yeah.
for real though.
Yeah.
But I think that's what I'm most looking forward to revisiting at some point in the future is going back to some of those phase two characters. Because I
Yeah.
think some of that phase two stuff is so underrated. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of people, I don't know if maybe not a lot, but I feel like a decent amount of people skipped it, or like I see people now on Twitter like reading some of those books now and reacting to them. I'm like, oh my God, this is so fun. Like I love seeing where this person has ended up
Yeah.
when I sign into Twitter the next day and like what they're tweeting about. And it just, yeah. So that kind of stuff is exciting. But I do hope that they pick some of those stories back up.
I'm sure they will. Because they don't want to disappoint us. I mean, they know that they can hurt us and we'll forgive them, but they don't want to let us down.
Right? You can hurt me all you want. I will come crawling back for more. It's actually rather pathetic.
I mean, honestly, it's our fault. We just keep letting them do it. We let them do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we say, okay, it's fine. We forgive you, only for them to do it again. We are the problem.
There are no consequences whatsoever. And we just have to live with that, you know?
I definitely think they'll do more High Republic specific things. What I really want to know, and I'll make it clear for everyone listening, we don't actually have any inside information. We don't know what's going on. Just 100% being clear about that. But I do wonder if having done a huge initiative series, whatever you want to call it, like this with the High Republic and seeing how successful it was and all the really experimentation that they did with it, I wouldn't be surprised if they did another one. Do you think they would?
Oh.
Like different era. Yeah, like a different era, maybe one we haven't explored before, maybe one we have. Like the High Republic, but just something else new. Like, do you think?
I could see it happening. I mean, I wonder if they would maybe jump forward into the future at some point. Like we're already jumping forward with the films with the Rey movie. And I mean, hell, you could jump 200 years after that and not. The nice thing about the High Republic and where it's set now is you don't have the pressure of like the Skywalkers lingering over it.
Yes.
And to jump forward that far into the future where you can maybe avoid something like that again.
Yeah.
No harm, no foul there. I mean, I like that idea, but honestly, I really do like this sort of before times that we're in, like before the Galactic Civil War. I like this time period. I mean, we know that there's like the High Republic, you know, what is it, like 200 to 300 years before Phantom Menace, and then it's like the Old Republic, which is what, like thousands of years or something. Like there's lots of in between space there.
Yeah,
you can. I don't know what they'd call it, but you can call it something else.
Yeah,
There's got to be different variations of the Republic in existence at some point.
Yeah, I mean, they really have, like, if you're gonna do another initiative like this, you really only have two options: go further back or go really far forward. And you know what? I trust that they know what they're doing. And if they do it, they will make the right decision and maybe bring in a whole new group of authors to do that, because why not? Why not?
Right? Yeah. Look what they've accomplished so far with this group. I mean, that collaboration is there, and they know how to like meld all of those voices and opinions and backgrounds together in the most perfect way. So I have no doubt that they could do it again.
Yeah, they may already be, and we just don't know.
I know, right? Yeah. And we certainly don't. You're right. I have zero insight into what's going on behind the scenes. But I do think it's fascinating when I look back because I just did a re-listen to Dooku Jedi Lost, which came out in
Mm,
2019,
mm.
and there's all of these little High Republic breadcrumbs in
Oh my
that book,
God.
and I'm like, okay, so that book was they were probably working on Dooku Jedi Lost in like what 2018, maybe even earlier, 2017.
Hmm.
So they knew High Republic stuff back then. And we didn't
Hmm.
get any of it until 2021. So who knows what's in the works now, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I've been meaning to go back and listen to that because I haven't listened to it since it came out. And everyone keeps telling me like, oh, there's so many like things stuffed in there that you're gonna like notice. And I'm like, I know,
Yeah,
I can't
it's a
wait.
banger. It's a highly recommend going back and revisiting it. It's really fun. And
Yeah.
if you turn it on like the sped up just a little bit, like you can get through it in like 5 hours. It's not a
Yeah.
particularly long story, and
Yeah.
it's just so good.
Mm. Yeah, it really is. It really, really is. I've been doing a lot more rereading of Star Wars stuff. Because you read something once and then you kind of like move on to the next thing, which at least I do a lot of the time. And like I think it's really fun because there's not a lot of time to reread things. But I think it's really fun with Star Wars to go back and like catch the things you missed or remind yourself of the things you forgot that you loved. Um, yeah, I think we should all do it more.
Yeah, no, I definitely need to do it with phase one in
Mhm.
particular. Like some of
Yeah.
the middle grade and the YA stuff. Like I'm like 95% sure I read all of it. Like there may have been something I missed in there because like some of the stuff that's happening in like phase three, I'm like, who the hell are these people? Like I need to go back and maybe revisit
Yeah.
some of the notes that I took on some of those books, but there may not have been any. And if I try and go back and listen to my own show, that's just going to be useless because
Oh
that's just me and
no.
Alice fucking around. Like that's not anything helpful for anyone.
Uh,
So it's yeah, it's on my to-do list at some point to go back and do that, but it's hard to do that when I read a book like what the hell are we talking about today? Temptation of the Force, and I love it so much that I immediately just like turn around and start reading it again. I mean, like the minute
oh,
I finished, I'm
I
like,
love
bam,
that.
right back to the beginning. And I normally would only do that with an audiobook.
Hmm.
When we're recording this on May 21st, we have not received the audiobook files
No.
yet. Normally, we get those somewhat far in advance of the adult novels coming out, and we get
Hmm.
those files ahead of time. We can listen to them, and that's usually when I can actually dive in because I'm generally not a big reader. Like it just
Hmm.
makes my eyeballs hurt, so
Yeah.
I tend to go for audiobooks. And the fact that we don't have that yet at all, and I have actually read this book twice, speaks to my head over heels love for this story. I mean, it's like I can't even put it into words, to be
Mhm.
totally honest.
Well, it's a good thing that we're here saying words about a book that we both really love.
Right?
I had posted that, well, the reason we're here is I'd posted that I was reading it and you messaged me and you were like, tell me when you're done, as soon as you're done. And I'm like, okay, I can do that. And then I was like, it must be really good. And I finished it and I was like, she was right.
Yep. Yep. Not
And
right about everything, not right about a lot of things, but I needed somebody to talk to about this book so badly. I
oh
can't. And so yeah, I was like, I need to know as soon. Like literally, I don't care what time it is. I may not answer you till morning if you message me in the middle of the night, but I need to know
yeah,
immediately
yeah,
so that I don't lose my goddamn mind because I
yes.
literally have just been that's what it was. I mean, April 19th, we got the advanced copy.
Mhm.
April 21st, I think I finished it. And then I had no one to talk to, Meg.
No,
No one, not a single
no,
human.
no. Well, that it's been less than a week than I since I finished it. And usually like I don't do these discussions or recordings that fast, but I'm like, we have to talk about this book because I don't think anyone else who has it has finished it because no one is talking about it. And I'm like, we can't talk about it, but we can talk about it because no one knows we're talking about it. But we can, and we are, and we're here because I don't even know. Like, I have notes. I have a general idea of where we're going with this conversation, but I also don't know where to start because what do you even say? What do you even
I
say?
have no idea. I truly don't. I mean, I've got, yeah, I don't have a lot of comprehensive notes, unfortunately. That's what my third reread is supposed to be,
Oh.
my second reread, my third read through is supposed to be, is me taking notes. But right now, all my notes are just, holy shit, what's going to happen next? Like after this book. So I've got lots of notes and thoughts on that, which is completely useless to everyone, including me at this point. But yeah, I'll get back into it. I did a lot of highlighting. I mean, I
Mm.
think I like there are like the Elzar Avar chapters. That's it's covered. It's just a
Oh my
whole highlight that happened in my
goodness.
Kindle. It's my poor Kindle is exhausted. And it put in the work on this one.
I'll highlight things here and there usually, like things that just particularly stand out or that I want to quote later. I highlighted like I promise you every like third page in this
Yeah.
book. I didn't mean to. I didn't intend to because I was like I want to do my first read kind of fast and get the story and start thinking about it. No, I could not stop highlighting because I'm like it's just there would be a random sentence and I'd be like, where did this come from? Like, Tessa Gratton, how dare you just write this in the middle of a page, in the middle of a paragraph that I'm trying to read?
Yeah, right. I'm like, I'm trying to focus here and you're distracting
Yeah,
me
with your
with
beautiful
your
writing.
right. I'm like, I swear to God. Okay, so let's talk about I'm not gonna hijack the conversation, but just this is kind of on topic. The Avar Elzar stuff. I mean, like these like speeches, these like monologues that they deliver to each other is like the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. I'm like, if anybody ever said this kind of shit to me, I would absolutely melt into a puddle, number
Yes.
one. Number two, um, the part, assuming we can get into spoilers right
Hmm.
now,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
The part where they're standing on the balcony and she delivers this mind-blowing
Mm.
confession of her love for him and her little loophole of how she's gonna get away with it with the whole Jedi forbidden attachment thing. And then he runs away from her. I am
Yep.
telling you, I would have jumped off the balcony right then and there. If I deliver that level of speech to anybody about any topic with that amount of passion and they ran off, whew, right off. I'm gone. It's over. I'm like, no, I can't continue in this life. So I'm like, thank God she knows him and
Oh
understands where he's
God.
coming from and why he's reacting the way he's reacting. Because I would be like, nope, I'm out of here. This is over for me.
That has happened to me actually. It was a long time ago. But it happened to me. I gave this like speech to someone where I was like, I think you're the best person ever. Let's date. He literally was like, nah. Turned around and walked away.
Oh my God.
So I read that part and I was like, I get you.
Yeah. You're like, I feel you, Avar. I'm feeling your pain right now. I
Um,
get it.
no, but like, okay, so here's the thing about um Elzar and Avar. Elvar, if you will. Um,
Yes.
I am not the biggest fan generally of like romance in Star Wars. Like it's part of Star Wars. It's great. But I don't usually like lose my mind over it. I don't know why. It just,
Okay.
sometimes I just don't vibe with
Fair.
it. This book, I I could not believe like how much it just sucked me in. I was like, I'm here for it. Like this is all I want. This is all I care about. This is the only relationship in Star Wars that matters. Um, but one thing that I cannot get over and I cannot believe, and I don't have any actual quotes because I don't know if I could. I don't know if I could stand it. Um, the speeches, as you mentioned, that these two give each other are amazing.
Yeah.
Um, but going even further to these very intimate scenes between these two, the language that Tessa uses to describe things is unbelievable. Like, it's almost like, how did you get away with this?
Right? Oh my God. I literally, okay. So the one other person that finished this book before you did that, like I messaged probably 5 or 6 people, reviewers being like, are you fucking done yet? Like, hurry up. Like, what are you doing? And like one of them was Alex Damon. And so I got to like chat with a little bit with him
Mm.
about it. But I'm just like, dude, like the innuendo in this. Some of the innuendo in this book is like outrageous. I mean, like and he wasn't as fun to talk to about it because he's not a girl and I wanted to talk to a girl about it. So I'm fun that we're having this little gab session now. Because I absolutely lost my mind multiple times over in this book. I mean, I think I literally wrote like in chapter 20, like one of my notes in I waited this long to actually say it where I'm like, if they don't bone by the end of this book, I'm gonna like drop dead. I just can't. I literally can't. And I don't even remember what like prompted me to say that. It was like, oh, one of them is where the conversations that Avar and Ilsa are having where it comes up, I think, twice, maybe three times, where he's like, "You're delirious. I should feed you." And she's like, "Yeah, you should do that." I'm like, "Girl, oh my God." I mean, like more than once. That conversation happens more than once. And I'm like, oh my God. Like I was absolutely losing my mind. Now I'm on the other side of it where I dive head deep into ships and shipping and romance and Star Wars. Be it in books, television, whatever. I wasn't like the biggest Reylo person, but like I got there eventually. Like I think we talked about Dinbo being a a decent ship that's not playing out in that, which we're gonna circle back to that. I'll bring that back around at some point. But like Ziri and Fawn 2, I really liked in phase 2. I mean, who was the other one? It was Gela and Axel. I really liked too. So I'm all about it, but really Avar and Elzar have been like my sort of they're my number one at the moment and have been for a while.
I mean, it took us a long time to get to this point in their relationship.
Yeah. 3 years. 3 years we waited for this.
Oh.
That.
Yeah. I think the payoff was beyond worth the wait. I really do. And like from the very beginning of this book, because I mean, we were left at the end of The Eye of Darkness being like, okay, yeah, something's going to happen with them later, which that part of their relationship also, them being apart for that long and working through all that, I loved. So already before starting this book, I was like, okay, like I'm getting on board, like, we're here, I'm ready, and like no one can ever touch them, do nothing to them. I will not be okay if anything terrible ever happens. They need to be live happily ever after. It's all that matters to me.
They need to be able to retire on Naboo when they are no longer useful to the Order, and they can just chill out there, and that's where they're going to end up. They'll just live happily ever after on Naboo when they're old balls. Like I don't know. I don't make the rules, man. They laid that rule down in phase 1, in book 1, in Light of the Jedi, and you expect me to be okay with them not following through on that someday? No, it's not happening. So yeah, I'm in the same boat.
I think because it's questionable how many of these characters are going to get the happy endings that we want them to get. We don't have to think about that right now because it's pretty far away, but I do like I could not see them like going this far with these two and them not having as happy of an ending as they can.
Right. There needs to be like we did get some decent payoff in this book, but I'm like, there has to be some.
Yeah.
I'm like, you can't give us what you gave us in this book and then rip the rug out from under. I can't. I literally can't imagine that happening. I mean, I should be able to imagine that happening because it's happened before, but I can't even fathom it. Like there has to be a happy ending for somebody. And I mean, I say this as a fairly cynical person, like there aren't a lot of happy endings, and there definitely aren't a lot of happy endings in Star Wars.
Yeah.
But we did just get a happy ending in the Bad Batch, and it reminded me that, oh yeah, this does exist every once in a while. And I had read this book by the time we saw the Bad Batch finale, so I'm like, oh, there are happy endings sometimes. Like this book may not be an end all be all end of the story, but in the contained story that it is, it does have a happy ending, and I'm all about that.
Yeah. I think Star Wars is starting to get better about their endings.
Yeah.
I think for a long time it was like you're pretty much never gonna get the happy ending that you want in the way that you want. I think in the past, at least couple of years, if not more, I think they're starting to they're starting to be a shift. I mean, you still have your, your tragedies and all that because Star Wars, and sometimes that is what it is. I think they're doing better though, and I think like this could be a case where they let's just say do the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where, yeah, it doesn't have to always be a happy ending, and nor should it.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking, the
Right.
nature of the story is war. It's not
Yeah.
always going to be a satisfying, happily ever after.
Yeah.
And nor should it. So I get it, but we need it every once in a while, you
Yeah.
know? And like, I was talking about this on my show on the Jedi Way, where, you know, I think it was George Lucas told Dave Filoni, like, Star Wars is about hope. Like,
Mhm.
you need to have, your stories need to have hope in them,
Yeah.
because you have to give that to kids. It's like they need to
Yeah.
have hope. And like every once in a while, I forget that a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And every once in a while I'm reminded, and it's books like Temptation of the Force every once in a while that remind me, yeah, there is hope for a happy ending, even if it's only temporary.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we've been with the High Republic this long. I think, um, at least we'll get a lot of happy endings, I think, by the end. There's like a few things that they cannot touch. Ember has to be fine, of course. They're never going to do anything
Oh, without question.
terrible.
If any, yeah,
Yeah.
Ember. At this
Yeah.
point, Plinka, I think too. Like,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. And probably, uh, uh it's hard. I really do think that Belle and Burry are going to be okay. Because they both lost so much and been through so much. I mean, everyone has, but I feel like, I don't know, there's something special about them, and I'm like,
Yeah.
they're gonna be fine. They're gonna be fine.
There is this great dynamic that the High Republic has that we don't see much in the Galactic Civil War, which is, the nature of it, because there just aren't a lot of Jedi around.
Mhm.
But the High Republic does this great thing with platonic Jedi
Mhm.
pair-ups, like
Yeah.
friendships, where, I mean, like Burry and Bell are both Jedi Knights that just travel the galaxy together, and that's just the way it is, and everybody seems to accept it, and it's fine. And nobody really digs into like the attachment conversation
Mhm.
with them. I mean, there was a little bit of that with like Belle and Ember,
Yeah.
but that kind of fell by the wayside. And I mean, I also think of Creighton's son,
Mm.
and God, her name is escaping me now.
I know who you mean. Oh,
She was like the red alien.
yeah. Oh man.
Oh, I feel like a piece of shit that I can't remember her name. Anyway, in phase two, whatever the Jedi is that he's traveling around with, they're such a great pairing too. I mean, the
Mhm.
two of them have like the greatest friendship, and how it ends in such horrific tragedy by the end of it. Now,
Yeah.
we didn't have as much time with them, so I wasn't as
Right.
attached, so I wasn't as upset when it ended the way it ended, but it was really kind of a cool, like, pairing for them. And it's just
Mhm.
kind of a cool concept that we get in
Yeah.
the High Republic with some of these characters. And so what if like Elzar and Avar want to pair up and travel the galaxy handling missions together? I mean, who's to say
Yeah.
that there's anything wrong with that when you've got people like Bella and Burry running around doing the same thing with their
Yeah.
pet dog? Like, it
Yeah.
just, I don't know. I'm like, I guess that's obviously a different nature of relationship, but like I said, Avar at least seems to have found a sort of loophole around it, or at least she thinks she has.
Mhm.
And yeah, be very interested to see how that plays out, especially knowing what we know is going to happen next, which is that
Yeah.
she's going to be going on this mission. Sorry to jump ahead with Keeve and Lorna. We don't have to get into that now, but it's like, well, clearly they're splitting them up for that. So unless
Yeah.
like Elzar's hiding in the, I don't know, luggage bin or something.
Just love how big this whole story is, and like sometimes with interconnected stories like this, you can get to a point where like, oh, like everything that they're doing is just setting up for the next thing. And that has the potential to become like something you don't want, but that is not a problem, at least for me in the High Republic at all. I feel like every story in which they ended setting up for the next thing that you need to look forward to is like, yes, give it to me right now. Like we do not get these books early enough.
Yeah, I think that they do a really good job of it. And a lot of times it's in an epilogue that has such an explosive component to it that it's like, oh my God, did you all really just drop that bomb on us and then drop the mic and leave? What the hell? So, I mean, I'm talking about Defy the Storm here. But if I recall, I don't think that this book actually had an epilogue. I think the last scene of it is just that, is it with like Marcion and Lena So or whatever?
Which we need to talk about that. We need to talk about Marcion in general, but the ending of this book, like I did not have the same reaction with this one as I did with Defy the Storm, because Defy the Storm I almost threw it across the room.
Same. I was so mad.
I was like, how dare you? How dare you do that to me? But my confession is that I've never been like Marcion Rowe is a fascinating antagonist, fascinating villain, fascinating character, but I've never been like, oh my God, I need to know everything about you until this book. Some of the
wouldn't
things
have defined yourself as a Marcion hoe, is what you're saying.
I guess so. I guess I'm finally here. It took this long, but here we are. And like he's always been interesting to me, but like some of the stuff with him in this book, I'm like, I need to know everything about you. not in a weird way, but like, excuse me, sir, what are you doing? And that's intentional, that we don't know everything that he's planning and we don't get inside his head all of the time. Although like just I think everything with him in this book, and just like the fact that he's just like trying to, you see him actively trying to figure out his next move, while essentially being haunted by ghosts is like, I love this.
He's like losing his mind. I mean, either that or he's actually being haunted, which apparently is a thing with Everany. I think we learned that from this book, that they just sometimes they see ghosts, and I'm like, do they, or are they just all losing their minds? Like, I mean, he's hallucinating all over this book. The way that he's like in a meeting with Vise and with Gira, and he's like seeing them slowly crumble into ash with this blight kind of overtaking them as they're just sitting, have a conversation with him, being like, sorry, are you okay? You don't look okay. And he's not okay. Which is probably for the best. But it's going to end in chaos and destruction and pain, I think, the more he slides downward into what is clearly some sort of deterioration. That seems to be what's happening here. Did you read The Eye of the Storm, that 2-part miniseries, the comics?
I haven't yet. I need to.
They're pretty solid. It's really interesting insight into how he grew up, and sort of the background, a little bit more background on the Everany. His dad's in it, and we see sort of, we get some mentions of him in this book too, in Temptation, as well as his grandmother. But the fact that Marta Rowe is straight up haunting his ass through the entirety of this book is so interesting.
It feels to me at this point like the more power he feels like he has, the more he loses touch with reality, which I think is so interesting. Because, allegedly, if all he wants is to be in control, yet the more control he has, the less he actually has. I really, really like it. I really like it. And I don't know where this is going. And it's almost starting to like bother me, because I'm like, I don't know, like, even in, if we're talking just about the adult novels, although if you haven't read any of the other ones, you should read all of them, I think, because they're great.
I second that.
they're all worth reading. I'll say that as many times as I have to get people to read the middle grade because no one wants to. I don't know why. But even in the next adult novel, like I have no idea. No idea. Not in the audio drama. I have no idea where we're going. And that I think is such a strength of all of these books in this entire series is like you can predict some things.
Yeah.
But not a lot of things.
Yeah, particularly not with Marcia Monroe.
Yeah.
It's really hard to sort of see. I mean, even Gira says it, I think, in this book where she just at this point can't predict what his next move is going to be. Yeah. He reminds me a lot of like the Joker. I mean, I think there's a line in The Dark Knight where he says something like, you know, I'm just out here chasing cars, but I wouldn't know what to do with one if I caught it. And Marcion Rowe is in this position where he's now gotten what seemingly he was after, which is this position of leadership. But he doesn't want to rule, you know, like he doesn't want to do anything. Like he's totally fine just letting Gira and Vise and Bulin just do whatever they want and kind of be in charge while he just goes off and runs experiments. Yeah. And I'm like, what are you even doing, man? Like, what's your motivation at this point? I don't remember where we started with this guy. Like, what was he? I don't know. He just wants to like pit his people against each other. And he seems to like get off on the Tempest fighting against each other, on the ministers now fighting against each other, just doesn't care. And if anything, enjoys it and prefers that they be at each other's throats.
Yeah. He is like the definition of a chaos demon. Like that's all he wants. Is just to create as much chaos as possible. And like he doesn't care how it ends. I don't think he even cares how he ends up. I think at this point he just kind of just like whatever. Like
that is the crazy thing because Marta, I mean, we see her in that Stories of Starlight like on the hunt to continue her bloodline. And I kind of get the impression that he might be at that age where he probably should be thinking about that if he does actually want to go down that path. And he doesn't seem to give a shit. No. So I'm like, I think that he's ready to just end it all. We still at this point in time don't know of any existing in the galaxy at this point in time or after. Yeah. So for all we know, he might be the last of them. I don't know.
Yeah. Which, I mean, could give him some kind of motivation to not care. It's like, it's over after him anyway.
Yeah.
It's so good. Like I said, it just keeps getting better. You think it's really good, and then you get a book like Temptation of the Forest, and you're like, now I need to know more about everything. And you know, we talked about, you know, the pairings that they're using throughout these books, and like this book especially, like everyone is pretty much paired off with someone, whether they want to be or not. And it just makes it so interesting to see like how everyone kind of feeds off of each other, while also, you know, moving the plot forward at the same time. It's so well done. I just like, we knew Tessa Gratton was so good at writing Star Wars. We've seen plenty of that already, and we got this book and I was like, this is just another level for you. I did not know you were capable of this. Not that I'm surprised. I'm like, it's just, you know, you look at the book as a whole and you're like, this is a very well constructed thing. And then you go down to like sentence by sentence and you're also like, wow, like that, I need to highlight this because I need to just absorb what I just read. She'll be describing like scenery. And I'm like, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever read.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's some of the moments that jumped out at me were like the ones that just felt very real. I mean, like very real reactions. Like when Elzar tells Avar that he got offered this seat on the council and immediately she freezes and her two emotions are elation for him and rejection for her. And the fact that she feels both of those things right at the same time immediately, I'm like, she's so real for that. Like, yeah. Because I mean, Elzar even says that, I think, in Shadows of Starlight, where he's like, you're going to probably be offered this seat on the council. And she's like, no, I'm not. I'm a failure. Also, bye. I'll see you in a year. And so but yeah, it's just a great moment. And there's a lot of those where their reactions just feel very human and very real. And those jumped out in a big way to me. It kind of, I don't know, made the whole thing feel, the space opera feel very real to me. And I really appreciated that.
Yeah. I think it's really important for certain books to do that. This one especially, because we are getting, whether we like it or not, we are getting closer to the end. And like, if there's a time to become as attached to these characters in this story as possible, it's now. Because we're almost there. We're almost to the end. And it doesn't feel that way because it is far away, but we don't have that many books left. I mean, there are more comics, there's the audio drama coming out in December. There's a lot of things still. But if you think of like individual stories, like we've gotten more than we're going to get at this point. We're just that far in. And you'd think it would be difficult to, develop these characters more and more in every single book. And in every new book, you have to develop them further in some way. But like it happens so seamlessly. Like this book, for example, I'll take Elzar and Avar, for example. Like they've both been through so much, both individually and together. And you think like, oh, how could more happen to kind of further their characters? And like that, it happens. It still happens. It keeps happening. And I loved the Jedi Council thing because you can feel just on the page he does not know what to do.
Yeah.
He's like, I could say yes, but I don't know if I want to. And he's just like, you can feel him just like torn up inside. It's so powerful because you're like, I don't know what I would do in that situation either.
Yeah. And the complete and utter shock combined with the guilt that he's still feeling, that he's still working through. I mean, we see him working through it a lot, I think, in The Eye of Darkness, but he's still working on it in this book. And I love that. Yeah, they don't seem afraid, especially with these characters that we've now known for 3 years, to really push them and be like, how far can we make this actually go before it breaks one of them?
Yeah.
And I really like where we're going with Elzar because I like being in his head on this healing journey that he's going through, where he is so torn up and so guilty about what he did to Chancey Yarrow, and yet he's now come so far, like a year plus later, where he's learning to accept it and to sort of be with him in his head on that journey. And this book is so rewarding, and I think it works so well as we're also trying to push him closer and closer to Avar, or as she's trying to pull him in closer and closer. And I'll be totally honest, if I didn't know what I knew about Avar Kriss, and if we didn't see other people's reactions to her as much as we do and as much as we have over the last 3 years, I think this would feel really manipulative on her part, just as much as she's like really pushing him. Like, you need to leave the safety of this building where you've been healing, and you need to come out in the galaxy with me, and we need to fight together, and you need to get away from all of this and start doing some real, like, it just feels, if I didn't know what I know about her, and if I didn't absolutely have like undying love for her character, and we didn't know that she is just this, other Jedi can sense that she's just this beacon of light walking around the halls. If we didn't know that about her, I don't think it would feel really all that good to have this sort of force pulling at Elzar this whole time. But it works. Like I feel like under different author it wouldn't work, but Tessa Gratton makes it work in this, and she pulls it off really, really well. I mean, to the point where you're just you can't help but cheer for them. Like even if you acknowledge, like, I know that this isn't good for Elzar, I am still cheering for this to happen.
It's so interesting to see the Jedi experiencing grief and experiencing emotions and confusion and knowing what path that could lead them down. And in so many cases in the High Republic, seeing them not go down that path. Like think of, everything Elzar's been through. Think of the things that Burry is still dealing with and continues to deal with a lot in this book. Because it's very much pushing the idea that like grief stays with you, and like how does a Jedi deal with that? You either kind of let it consume you, or you use it in a different way, or you learn to live with it. The High Republic can do that and has been doing that this whole time, and it never ceases to amaze me how amazing it is that we get that, because we don't see that with the Jedi a lot. You see the side of like, oh, don't, you can't experience this, or you can't process this because it can lead you down the path you don't want to go down. Well, you can also experience it and not make that choice to go down that path. And we're seeing that.
Yeah. I think the most interesting thing about Burry is, knowing what he went through and seeing how he's still sort of experiencing like the post-traumatic stress of all of that happening. And to pile on top of it, he has to like take on, he's got to like absorb all of these feelings of other people, because that's just like who he is as a Force user. That's like his special sort of gift. And that he's still dealing with all of this and then has to take even more on. I mean, it's like at some point any normal person would break. And he's such an incredible character, and I think he's paired up really well with Belle. And their relationship, the fact that Belle never like gave up on him, I just oh God. Yeah. It's so good. And it just goes to prove once and for all, if you don't have a body in Star Wars, you cannot prove that anybody is dead. It is the thing that we seem to forget. But it's for real. Except in this case of Tech, who we never saw body, and he is actually dead. Sorry. There are exceptions. That's one of them.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I do actually, like, now that we've been talking about the book, like I wasn't planning on reading it again before it came out, but now I kind of want to, because I feel like there's so much good stuff in it that like I experienced, but I kind of want to experience it again. Oh man, like this doesn't usually happen with Star Wars with me, but like this book is just that good.
I'm so jealous of the people that get to read it again, that get to read it for the first time soon.
Yes.
And to like see all of the I'm so excited for fan art. I need an explosion of fan art on Tumblr, Instagram, Twitter, whatever. I'll look for it everywhere, and I want to see it everywhere. And the fact that we got that excerpt of chapter 1 the other day and there wasn't an explosion, there's some, but it's not a lot. I'm like sitting here like, get to it. Everybody get to it. Come on. Come on. I'm not an artist. I can't do this myself. I need other people to do it.
I know. That's like something like I am always like, I look at fan art of Star Wars things and I'm like, I can't draw anything.
No.
And I wish I could, because like that's all, but also that's all I would ever do. And maybe it's for the best.
It is for the best. Yeah. This is for the best, because we spend our spare time doing this and sitting and gabbing about Star Wars books that we love. And that is constructive. And because it will come to an end. We can't stay on Zoom all night long. We will have to stop. But if I had like a pen and paper and I was super into drawing in color, I could stay up all night and do that.
Yeah.
So this is for the best. We're doing it correctly for us, Meg.
I mean, but also you could draw and listen to the audiobook at the same time if we had it. We will soon, I think.
We will. We have to have it soon. I just like want to listen to Mark Thompson's interpretation of this. I can't wait. Also, though, there's, again, jumping ahead, but Mark Thompson has like a very specific way. Do you listen to the audiobooks? Are you an audiobook? Really? He's got like a very specific way of reading Avar Chris, sort of British, a little bit like light and breathy. He does a lot of women the same, but that sort of like light and breathy delivery. And the woman that played her in the audio drama last time, I was like, this is too different. Can we line up like just a little bit? Like that actress can do a British accent. She did it in Dooku Jedi Lost. It would be perfect if she just did that. And yet they don't. And so now I'm a little bit nervous for that audio drama to come out, but it's fine. It's fine. I'll learn to love it and let it go, and it'll be fine.
Oh yeah, there are definitely some chapters that I'm going to be very interested to hear Mark Thompson reading. Hmm,
I will be doing what I did with this book when I was actually reading it, and that is jumping ahead. I am not ashamed to admit it. I do this. I'm sorry. This happens to me with all the High Republic books because they're all
Mhm.
structured, at least recently, this sort of same way, where you've got 4 or 5 stories playing out in
Yeah,
one book, and they kind of switch off from chapter to chapter. And
yeah.
I'm like, sorry, some of this I just did not. I don't, I don't care about this as much. Like, I'm gonna jump to the stuff that, because otherwise I will just have anxiety the entire time I'm reading this
Right,
book, and that's not beneficial for anyone.
right.
So I will be jumping ahead, and that's fine because it works for me, and everybody can do what works for them, and
Yep,
that's what works for me.
yep. I mean, it's your book. You're holding it. You can do whatever you want. Um, I I'm glad that we finally got to talk about this. And we could keep talking about it, to be clear, for hours.
Yeah.
And it would not get tiring. I don't know if anyone would want to listen to a conversation that's that long, but if you do, let me know and I'll plan some longer conversations. You might have to pay for them though. I don't know. But um, I don't know if I could have waited, honestly, to have this
No.
conversation. I don't think I could have. So that's why I was like, yeah, let's record like soon. Because
Let's do it now.
yeah, it's it's such a good book, and I think I will grow to love it even more the more I sit with it. I get nervous about like doing this too soon after I finish because I'm like, oh, I haven't processed. No, I was processing fine. I processed everything I needed to process.
Yeah.
Um,
I have processed, and now I just want to sit and soak in
yes,
it. Like, I just love it. Can I make one more point that I
yes,
wanted to bring up, which
yes.
is to just throw a little bit of shade at Jon Favreau, no offense. And probably Dave Filoni too. Um, so the thing that Tessa Gratton accomplishes in this book, and I think there's a lot to be said about what has built up to this point too, and the other novels that have come before it, which is that Avar Chris has this perfect balance of being able to command a room and have this like military precision, um and like be this sort of military leader, and also be this very romantic love interest.
Mm.
And it works so perfectly, and part of that is maybe just the nature of the novels, because you get other people's impressions of her,
Mm.
not just her. um but it works so well. And when I hear criticisms of other Star Wars creators where they've got these women in their stories and it can't be both, it has to either be this like romantic love interest, or it has to be this like strictly military, like pretty much asexual situation happening. And yet Avar Chris, I think, is just the most perfect example of being able to combine both of those things really, really well.
Mhm.
And it just works. And I love that. And I wish that there were more Star Wars storytellers that could pull that off just as well. That's
Bo-Katan
all I'm gonna say.
deserves better.
She does deserve better. Thank you. Bo-Katan deserves better. And other Star Wars characters. I mean, like I think like Asajj Ventress is one of the other
Mm,
characters where it really works. And again, it works really well in the book.
yeah,
We haven't seen that story played out on screen, but it works there. So maybe there's
yeah.
something to be said for just like the books, but I challenge some Star Wars creator, live action, animated or otherwise, to pull off the same feat.
Mm. They could do it if they wanted to.
They could. They could and they don't.
Mm.
So, what does that say?
Mm. Um, More women need to make Star Wars, is what it says.
Oh my God, can you even imagine? Damn right they do. Here's hoping for the Acolyte. I don't need a romantic story in the Acolyte. It's fine if there's not
Yeah,
one. There doesn't need
yeah,
to be a romantic element to every Star Wars story, but
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe if they get a season 3 or 4 or something, like push that, put that in there somewhere, just squeeze it in.
Yeah, why not?
Feed us the way Elzar feeds Avar.
I cannot believe this.
Cannot believe this book exists. I literally can't believe, like, every minute that I was reading one of those chapters, holding this book in my hand, I was sitting in my living room like, oh my God, like gasping. Sorry. Anyway, I went on diatribe while you were trying to wrap up. Sorry, Meg.
You're good. I think I'm talking to Tessa next week, and I'm like, how do I professionally ask you, how did you get away with this?
No, the question is, how far did it go in your first draft? And then you were told to pull it back. I'm like, how much can you tell me about how far it originally went? And also, can I get the outtakes? That would be wonderful. Yeah, when I finished this book, the first thing I did was like send her a message on Instagram, because Twitter sucks and I can't message her there, to just be like, thank you. Thank you for this book. Thank you for giving me the story that I have needed, that I have been pining for literally years. Thank you for giving me a happy romantic ending and executing it somehow effortlessly. Like, just, yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. It's so good. And a lot of you will have read it by now, by the time you're listening to this, but if you haven't yet, hopefully this conversation convinced you to start doing that as soon as this episode is over. It's worth it. If we haven't convinced you, I don't know what will.
Yeah, right. And I feel like we went into a lot of it. Like, this book isn't all romance. That's like,
yeah.
I mean, like I said, there's like 5 different stories happening at once, and that's kind of just one of them.
Right.
We didn't even talk about like Xylan and Care, and like their story is fantastic too, but also like it's not all romance. Like, there's more to it. It just, it's a great adventure story. There's an amazing weird use of the Force in it. I mean, it's kind of got everything. There's like great battle scenes, like space battle scenes. It's awesome.
Yeah. And you know, if you've liked other High Republic stories, you'll definitely like this one.
For real.
So just don't read this one if you've never read another High Republic book, because you'll be very confused.
Oh, extremely. Yeah, no, don't do that.
I love this. We need to do this more often. There's not enough time for anything, but we need to do this more often.
We do. We shouldn't go a year again. That was,
I know.
That's so funny. I'm sure we talked about either Cataclysm or Convergence or both and Dinbo, and amazing. Like, and I'm sure that, I know that was a fun conversation, because I remember leaving it being like, this is fun. Like, this is you're a fun person to sit and be able to like talk Star Wars with. And I am actually really surprised that you're just like, no, romance in Star Wars isn't 100% my thing all the time. So I'm like, well, this was still fun as hell for me. So thank you. Because my 2 co-hosts on the Jedi Way are dudes, and they don't read any of the High Republic stuff. And Alice reads it, but she's like very not into romance at all. Like, hates mushy stuff in Star Wars. Like, she hasn't read this book, and I'm sure she's like, it's probably not going to be for her. But we'll see. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. So
you never know. And like you said, there's a lot of different things going on, and I think there might be a little bit of something that everyone might like, even if you don't like all the things.
That's a good point.
I'll put that in my review if I ever get around to writing it.
Yeah, right. I'm like, when am I gonna have time to do that? I don't know, but I will. I will have to get all of the things out of my head and onto paper at some point.
Just write, this is the best book I've ever read, over and over and over again, and hit publish. That's all you need to do.
Yeah, I should do that. You know, I feel like I kind of did. I feel like I did tell people, like, hey, Cataclysm's phenomenal. I love this book. I love the ending. I think it was perfect. And then I feel like people read it and were just kind of like, meh.
Oh.
But maybe I mean, obviously we see our own Twitter feeds in our very specific curated way. So I don't know what that's about, but I'm like, I felt like that book was fantastic. And I feel like, I don't know, I love this book too. And I'm like, but if I don't like want to build it up too much for people, I don't know. I'm like, do I oversell things? I don't want to do that, but it's that good. So
it is. And I mean, like, a lot of people, you know, they go into it expecting certain things, and they may not get exactly what they want, even if the book is good, and that, you know, affects the way that they react to it. And that's the thing about reading, is everyone's going to come away with it with different thoughts. But you know, we loved it. We said very nice things about it because we wanted to, not because we had to, and maybe that's all that matters.
I'll take that.
Why don't you tell the people where they can find you on the Star Wars internets?
You can find me in lots of places on the Star Wars internets. My podcast, Force Toast, a Star Wars Happy Hour, is a very silly show where my friend Alice and I drink wine and talk about Star Wars. We usually just catch up on news and we do recaps of whatever we're reading, watching, listening to in the Star Wars realm. And then the show that I host with my friend John Roca on his YouTube channel, we also have Kevin Smets as our co-host now on the Jedi Way, where we talk about Star Wars. And we tend to stick with more sort of like TV, movies, news stuff more recently. I don't get to gab us about books as much over there. But then follow me on Twitter. I'm at @shutup_Laura because I love talking about Star Wars on Twitter. That's pretty much where I'm talking about Star Wars all the time, far more often than I should be these days. But yeah, that's what can you do? I'm also on Twitter at @shutup_Laura, or I'm on Instagram, but I'm not as active there as I am on Twitter. So find me on Twitter.
Yeah. That's where all the fun's happening, allegedly. I don't know.
Sometimes it's fun, sometimes it's not.
Sometimes you're just screaming into the void. No one hears you.
Yeah, exactly.
Now This Is Lit is part of the Faraway Fandom Network. It is produced by Devor Montum and written, hosted, and edited by me. Jose Jimenez designed our podcast art. You can keep up with the show on Substack and Now This Is Lit, and find the show wherever you get your podcasts. There are so many ways you can support the show, and all of those ways are linked in the show description. The newest way is to become a member of our Patreon. For $1 a month, you can get access to an exclusive show and a sticker. And if we get 500 people to support the Patreon per month, I can hire an editor. That would be great for me, and maybe for you too. So if you'd like to support the show with just $1 a month, you can do it that way. Or you can just keep listening and sharing the episodes. That is also helpful, and I appreciate it. For more book reviews and Star Wars Book Celebration, follow Star Wars Book Reviews on Instagram and TikTok.